What if the defining tragedy of the 21st century was allowed, or even orchestrated, to justify a pre-planned agenda of perpetual war? Following the events of September 11th, the United States pivoted from a state of relative security into a decades-long cycle of Middle Eastern conflicts and the construction of a domestic surveillance state. The strategic motive for this shift appears in a September 2000 report from the Project for the New American Century, or PNAC. Titled Rebuilding America's Defenses, this document outlined a massive military realignment to project dominance into the Middle East. Crucially, the authors noted that this transition would be very slow, quote, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. This document provides a documented geopolitical motive. It describes a military expansion that the authors themselves admitted could not be achieved quickly without a massive domestic catalyst. The suggestion that a government would target its own citizens often meets immediate skepticism. However, classified files from 1962 reveal that such strategies have been formally proposed at the highest levels of the U.S. military. During the Cold War, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Lyman L. Lemnitzer, drafted a top-secret Pentagon plan known as Operation Northwoods. Operation Northwoods proposed staging lethal, self-inflicted terror attacks on American soil, including blowing up a U.S. ship, sinking a boatload of refugees, or destroying a civilian passenger aircraft. The goal was to manufacture a pretext for invading Cuba by exploiting domestic trauma. The blueprint for using manufactured domestic attacks to launch a pre-planned war was an established strategy, documented and stored in the Pentagon's own filing cabinets. In the year leading up to the attacks, evidence of suppressed intelligence began to mount. This is most visible in Able Danger, a 2.5 terabyte military data mining operation. More than a year before 9/11, the Able Danger program identified Mohamed Atta and his cell as a worldwide threat operating inside the United States. Despite this identification, Pentagon lawyers intervened. They actively prevented the intelligence team from sharing this information regarding Atta's cell with the FBI. By the summer of 2000, Army intelligence ordered the destruction of the Able Danger data. When intelligence officer Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer attempted to present this timeline to the 9/11 Commission, his testimony was entirely omitted from the final report. On the morning of the attacks, specific warnings continued to surface. 2 hours before the first plane hit, an Israeli office for an instant messaging company called Odigo received an advanced warning of the strike. In New Jersey, 5 employees of a front company called Urban Moving Systems were arrested after they were seen filming and celebrating the collapse of the towers. The accumulation of suppressed tracking data, the physical destruction of evidence, and specific advanced warnings suggest a systemic pattern of deliberate allowance rather than a simple intelligence failure. The investigation moves from suppressed intelligence to physical anomalies. This is World Trade Center Building 7, a 47-story skyscraper never hit by an airplane. Official reports blamed minor fires, yet the skyscraper underwent perfectly symmetrical freefall, which engineering tests prove impossible from heat alone. Conversely, debris analysis revealed sulfur-enhanced thermite, an incendiary capable of slicing through steel, explaining the molten iron found at the tower's base. These findings align with Larry Silverstein's public statement that the decision was made to pull it, a term used in the demolition industry for a controlled collapse, and expert assessments also noted that the rapid, symmetrical failure suggested explosives had been placed in the basement. Before a forensic investigation was conducted, Giuliani's office had the steel evidence shipped to Asia to be melted down, destroying the crime scene. The political response to the attacks was driven by the psychological profile of the Bush administration. President George W. Bush frequently operated as a true believer, stating that he had been personally called by God to strike down enemies in Afghanistan and Iraq. Neoconservative strategists weaponized this mentality to recast imperial violence as a battle between good and evil, removing the rational geopolitical context from the resulting wars. This follows a historical pattern. In 1933, the Nazi regime used the trauma of the Reichstag fire to suspend civil liberties in Germany. Similarly, the 9/11 attacks provided the necessary shock to overhaul American constitutional rights. Just over a month after the attacks, a panicked Congress passed the USA Patriot Act. The legislation was so massive that it was passed largely unread by the members of the House and Senate. By granting the executive branch the authority to bypass habeas corpus, the legal protection against unlawful detention, and conduct warrantless searches, this legislation removed the primary constitutional barriers to state surveillance. When the evidence is viewed as a single cohesive whole, the suppressed warnings, the impossible building collapses, and the pre-packaged surveillance state, the official narrative shatters. We are left to examine the resulting era of perpetual war and the erosion of domestic privacy, asking who benefited from the death of liberty.
Thank you for exploring these anomalies with us today. Digging into the hidden layers of history is our mission at the Bookish Breakdown. If you found this video valuable, please like and subscribe to our channel to help us keep uncovering the truth. We'll see you in the next deep dive.